I was folding my father's shirts when my mother told me I had to leave, not asked, told. The laundry room still smelled like the detergent I'd been buying for 3 years, the unscented kind that didn't irritate Dad's skin after the chemo. His shirts were soft from so many washings, thin at the collars. I was careful with them. The way you're careful with things you know won't last forever. Elena, we need to talk. Mom stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. That look on her face I'd learned to read before I could read actual words. The look that meant a decision had already been made, and my opinion was a formality she'd skip if she could. I set down the shirt. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But your sister Vanessa called this morning. She's going through a really hard time right now. Mom's voice had that edge to it. The one that meant I was supposed to understand something without her having to explain. Mark left her. Just walked out. And she's got the kids. And her lease is up next month. And she needs help. My hands went still on the fabric. She's coming here, Mom continued. She needs to stay with us for a while. Get back on her feet. The kids need stability. I nodded slowly. Okay, we can make that work. I can share my room with the boys, and Vanessa can take the guest room. No, Mom's voice was sharp. Elena, there's not enough space for everyone. Vanessa needs the guest room. The boys will need your room. They need their own space. They've been through so much. And the living situation. She paused, and I watched her rearrange her face into something that was supposed to look sympathetic. You're 33 years old. You've been living here rent-free for 5 years. It's time. The words hit me like cold water. Rent-free? I heard my own voice, but it sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else's body. I pay the utilities, I said quietly. I buy the groceries. I've been taking Dad to every appointment for 3 years. Every single one. I gave up my apartment to move back here when he got sick, and we appreciate that, Mom cut in. But Elena, you have to understand your sister has children. She has real responsibilities. You're single. You don't have kids. You can land on your feet. Vanessa can't. Real responsibilities. The words hung there between us like smoke. I thought about the last 3 years. The AM wake-ups to give Dad his medications before I drove to work. The nights I'd spent researching clinical trials and alternative treatments while everyone else slept. The way I'd learned to inject anti-nausea medication and change PICC line dressings and talk to him about everything and nothing while he threw up and sure, I'd made him drink the Saturday 2 months ago when he'd looked at me with those hollowed-out eyes and whispered, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'd held his hand and told him he was the bravest person I'd ever known, even though we both knew I was lying. He wasn't brave. He was just trapped in a body that was trying to kill him. And I was trapped watching it happen. Real responsibilities. When? I asked. She's driving down this weekend. So, you have a few days. For days. I had 4 days to dismantle the life I'd built here, in the house where I'd grown up, where I'd moved back to because family was supposed to mean something. I'll start packing, I said. Mom's face softened with relief. You understand. I knew you would. You've always been so independent. Not like Vanessa, she needs more support. I picked up another shirt and started folding. My hands moved automatically, creasing the sleeves just so, the way I'd like them. Elena. Mom's voice had shifted into that careful tone again. About the house, I want to make sure you understand something. Your father and I talked about this before he passed. The house will go to your sister when the time comes. She has the kids to think about. She'll need the security. My hands stopped. The house? It's for the best. You'll be fine. You've always been the strong one. She left me there with the laundry, and I realized I was gripping Dad's shirt so hard my knuckles had gone white. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my childhood bedroom, my soon-to-be former bedroom, and stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck to the ceiling when I was 9. They barely glowed anymore, just pale green ghosts of what they used to be. I thought about how I'd been the one sitting with Dad during his last week when the hospice nurse said it was close. How Vanessa had been too emotional to handle it, so she'd stayed away. How Mom had busied herself with funeral arrangements while I stayed up all night holding Dad's hand, feeling his pulse get weaker and slower until it finally stopped. I'd been the one to close his eyes, and now I was the one being erased. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Mom told me the good news. Thank you so much for understanding. You're literally saving our lives right now. The boys are so excited to have their own room. I stared at those words until they blurred. Literally. Saving our lives. I'd saved Dad's life at least twice, once when he'd aspirated in the middle of the night and I'd done the Heimlich until he could breathe. And once when he'd had an allergic reaction to a new medication and I'd driven him to the irritate because the ambulance would have taken too long. But that wasn't real, apparently. That wasn't responsibilities. I got out of bed and went to Dad's study. Mom had left it mostly untouched, his books still on the shelves, his reading glasses on the desk. I sat in his chair and opened his laptop, which I'd been using to manage his medical records and insurance claims. I'd been the one handling all of that. The endless phone calls with billing departments and insurance companies. The spreadsheets tracking medications and side effects. The files full of medical records and test results and doctor's notes. I'd organized everything. And then I started going through the other files. Financial documents, tax returns, property records. My father had been a meticulous man. He'd kept everything. And what I found there, in folder after folder of carefully labeled PDFs, changed everything. Our house wasn't just in my parents' names. 3 years ago, when I'd moved back, Dad had added me to the deed. I found the paperwork dated a week before his diagnosis, with a note in his careful handwriting. For Elena, who never asks for anything. My name was on the house. Mom had never mentioned it. Maybe she didn't know. Or maybe, and this felt more true, she'd hoped I wouldn't find out. But there was more. I found Dad's will. The official one. Not the handwritten plans Mom had mentioned. In it, he'd left his half of the house to me. Explicitly. With a letter attached explaining why. Because I'd given up my life to take care of him. And because he wanted me to have security. Elena has sacrificed more than anyone should have to. He'd written. She deserves a home of her own. And I want her to have this one. My mother's name was on the house too. Obviously she owned half as his spouse. But Dad's half was mine. Which meant any decision about the house required my approval. I sat there in the dark, in my father's chair, reading his words over and over. And then I started taking pictures of everything. By the time the sun came up, I had copies of every important document. Deed transfers, the will, insurance policies, bank statements showing every deposit I'd made to help with bills, receipts for the groceries, the medications, the countless things I'd paid for because my parents' retirement wasn't stretching far enough. I had proof of everything. At tea breakfast, Mom was cheerful. I was thinking maybe we can have a nice family dinner before you move out. Vanessa and the boys will be here Saturday. We could do Sunday, before you leave? That sounds nice, I said. I took a bite of the oatmeal I'd made. The same kind I'd been making every morning for 3 years because it was the only thing Dad could keep down during the worst of the chemo. Where will you go? She asked, in that tone that meant she was asking to be polite. Not because she really wanted to know. I'm not sure yet. I lied. I'll figure something out. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already called a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Patricia Chen, and her office smelled like expensive leather and confidence. Let me make sure I understand, she said, looking over the documents I'd brought. Your father added you to the deed 3 years ago. You've been living in and maintaining the property since then. You've made substantial financial contributions to the household. And your father's will explicitly leaves his half to you. Yes. And your mother is telling you to leave because your sister needs the space. Yes. Patricia leaned back in her chair. She was maybe 50, with gray streaking through her black hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen every flavor of family drama. Does your mother know you're on the deed? I don't think so. And she doesn't know about the will? She said Dad told her the house would go to my sister. But I found the official will. He left his half to me. Patricia was quiet for a moment, tapping her pen against her desk. Miss Torres, I'm going to be very direct with you. Based on what you've told me and what I'm seeing in these documents, you have a strong legal position. Your mother cannot force you to leave. You own half this house or will, once the estate is settled. And given your father's clear intentions in his will, you have every right to stay. What about my mom's half? She owns half outright as surviving spouse. But she can't sell without your agreement. She can't force you out. The property requires both owners to agree on major decisions. Patricia paused. What do you want to happen here? I thought about that question. What did I want? I wanted my father back. I wanted the last 3 years to matter. I wanted my mother to see me as something more than the strong one, the independent one, the one who didn't need anything because she never asked for anything. I wanted to not be erased. I want to stay, I said quietly. It's my home. Then we'll make sure you can stay. Patricia drafted a letter lawyers speak for back off, explaining my legal interest in the property and my rights as part owner and beneficiary. She offered to send it or to let me handle the conversation myself first. I took the letter home. That night, Vanessa called. I could hear the boys shouting in the background, that particular brand of chaos that comes with kids under 10, EL. Oh my God. Thank you again for being so cool about this. You have no idea what it's been like. He just left, took half the money and disappeared. And I've been trying to hold it together for the boys, but it's so hard, you know? I didn't know. I knew what it was like to hold things together while everything fell apart. I knew about the panic attacks and the constant weight of responsibility and the feeling that if you stopped moving, stopped managing, everything would collapse. But I also knew that I'd done it without asking anyone to give up their home. Vanessa, I said, we need to talk. What's wrong? You sound weird. I can't move out. Silence. What do you mean you can't move out? Mom said Mom doesn't own the whole house. Dad put me on the deed 3 years ago. I own half of it. More silence. Then, that's not Mom said the house was hers. She said Dad wanted us to have it. Dad wanted me to have half of it. I have the paperwork. But I need it, Elena. I have kids. You don't understand what it's like. I understand that you're going through something awful, I said. I do. But I gave up 3 years of my life taking care of Dad. I moved back here. I paid bills. I was there for every appointment, every bad night, everything. And now I'm being told to leave like none of that mattered. So you're just going to screw us over? Me and the boys? The unfairness of it hit me like a slap. I'm not screwing anyone over. I'm keeping my home. The home I've been living in and taking care of. There's room for all of us. We can make it work if we try. Mom said you were being difficult. Of course she had. Mom told me I was living here rent-free. She said my sister has real responsibilities and I don't. So I'm sorry, Vanessa, but I'm done being the one who's supposed to understand. I'm done being the strong one who doesn't need anything. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. Saturday came anyway. I heard Vanessa's car pull into the driveway around noon. The boys exploded out of it like they'd been compressed and they're under pressure, all noise and energy. They were 7 and 9, gap-toothed and wild-haired, and they looked like they'd been living out of the car for a week. Vanessa looked worse. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy bun. She had dark circles under her eyes and that haunted look of someone who's been running on fumes and determination. I felt a twist of guilt, seeing her like that. But then Mom came out, and she looked right past me to embrace Vanessa, and the guilt calcified into something harder. Come in, Mom was saying. Let's get you settled. Boys, go on up, your room is ready. My room. She meant my room. Vanessa finally looked at me. Elena. Vanessa. We stood there in the driveway. 2 sisters who used to share everything, who used to stay up late talking about their futures, before life had carved us into different shapes. Can we talk? She asked. We sat in the backyard, on the bench Dad had built when we were kids. The wood was weathered now, soft with age. I didn't know, Vanessa said. About the deed, about the will. Mom made it sound like everything was settled. It wasn't. She said you were being selfish, that you didn't understand about families, about priorities. I laughed, and it came out bitter. I spent 3 years understanding about families. Where were you? Vanessa flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? I was here every day, Vanessa. Every single day. I watched Dad die. I held his hand while he stopped breathing. And now I'm supposed to just disappear because you need the space? I have kids, Elena. I know. And they need a home. And that's important. But so do I. This is my home too. Dad wanted me to have it. Vanessa was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. I'm scared. I know. Mark took everything. The savings, half of what I made from selling our furniture. I have nothing. And the boys, they keep asking when we're going to have our own place again. And I don't know what to tell them. My chest ached. I could see it from her side. I really could. Single mom, betrayed, broke, desperate. But I also saw it from mine. The daughter who'd been taken for granted, who'd given and given until there was supposed to be nothing left. We can share the house, I said. All of us. It'll be tight, but we can make it work. The boys can have my room, I'll take the guest room. You can have Mom's old craft room. We'll figure it out. Mom won't like that. I don't care what Mom likes. Vanessa looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. When did you get so hard? When I stopped being convenient. That night, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. What do you think you're doing? I'm staying, I said calmly. This is my house. Legally. Dad made sure of that. Your father didn't know what he was doing at the end. He was on so many medications he added me to the deed 3 years ago before the diagnosis. And he updated his will a year before he died. He knew exactly what he was doing. Mom's face had gone red. After everything I've done for you, after everything you've done for me. The words came out sharp, and I didn't try to soften them. I moved back here to take care of Dad. I gave up my apartment, my independence, my life. I was here every day while you couldn't handle being in the same room with him when he was sick. Where were you when he was throwing up blood? Where were you when he needed help to the bathroom at AM? Where were you when he died? How dare you know? How dare you tell me I don't have real responsibilities? How dare you call me a parasite for living in the house Dad wanted me to have? How dare you try to erase me like I was never here? You're being incredibly selfish. I'm being what you made me. You wanted me to be strong and independent? Congratulations. I learned. Mom's eyes were bright with tears, angry tears. Your sister needs this. Your sister needs help. And I'm willing to help her. But I'm not disappearing so you can pretend I never existed. You're going to regret this. Maybe I would. But I'd regret leaving more. Living together was exactly as uncomfortable as I'd imagined. The boys were loud and everywhere. The way kids are. They turned my old room into a disaster zone within a week. Clothes on the floor, toys scattered like landmines. That particular kid's smell of sweat and juice boxes and unwashed hair. Vanessa tried to keep them quiet, but her heart wasn't in it. She was focused on job hunting, scrolling through listings late into the night, sending out resumes that disappeared into the void of the internet, and Mom barely spoke to me. She'd say the bare minimum: past assault, there's mail for you, and nothing more. When Vanessa or the boys were around, she was warm and present. When it was just us, she was ice. I'd expected that. What I hadn't expected was how much it would hurt. 2 months in, Patricia called. The estate is settled. Your father's half of the house is officially yours now. Officially mine. There's something else, Patricia said. When I was going through the probate documents, I found some accounts your father had set up. A trust, actually. For you, a trust. He'd been putting money aside for years. Not a fortune, but substantial. About $120,000. It was set up to transfer to you on his death, with a letter of instruction that it was for your future, buying a home, starting a business, whatever you wanted. I couldn't breathe. Your mother was trustee, Patricia continued. She should have told you about it months ago. She never mentioned it. No, Patricia said grimly. She wouldn't have. Because if you'd known about the money, you wouldn't have needed the house as badly. You could have left, bought your own place, and then she could have done whatever she wanted with the property. The betrayal hit me in waves. It wasn't just about the house. It was about Mom hiding the resources Dad had left me, letting me believe I had nowhere to go, trying to manipulate me into giving up my home, all while calling me the selfish one. That night, I confronted her. Why didn't you tell me about the trust? Mom's face went carefully blank. I don't know what you're talking about. Dad's trust. The $120,000 he left me. You were the trustee. You were supposed to inform me. Oh, that. She waved her hand dismissively. I was going to tell you eventually. There's a process for these things. It's been 8 months since he died. The process is over. You hid it from me. I didn't hide anything. You let me think I had nothing. You told me to leave, knowing I had money Dad wanted me to have. Why? Mom's mask cracked. Because you don't need it the way your sister does. Vanessa has children to support. She needs security. You're young. You're single. You can rebuild. Why should you get everything when she has nothing? Dad didn't leave it to her. He left it to me because he didn't understand. He understood perfectly. He understood that I was the one who took care of him, that I sacrificed my life for this family, and he wanted me to have something in return. And what about your sister? What about me? Do we get nothing? You get half the house. You get to live here, in the home you shared with Dad. Vanessa gets a place to stay while she gets back on her feet. Nobody's getting nothing. But you get everything. And there it was. The real issue. Not that I was being selfish, but that I was being chosen for once over everyone else. No, I said quietly. I get what Dad wanted me to have. That's not everything. That's just something. Mom turned away from me. I always knew you were cold, Elena, but I didn't realize how cold until now. The words should have hurt more than they did. I'm not cold, I said. I'm just done being warm for people who never feel it. The next morning, I found Vanessa in the kitchen. She'd been crying. Her eyes were puffy, her nose red. I heard you and Mom fighting, she said. I'm sorry. I tried to keep it quiet. No. She stopped, pressing her hands to her face. God, Elena, I'm so sorry. I waited. I didn't know. About the money. About Mom not telling you. About any of it. Vanessa's voice cracked. I've been so focused on my own problems. I didn't even think about what you've been going through. What you went through with Dad. It's okay, it's not okay. Mom told me you were being difficult. That you were keeping the house out of spite. But you weren't, were you? You were just trying to keep the one thing you had left. I sat down across from her. I was trying to keep my home. That's all. And I came in and acted like you owed it to me. Vanessa wiped her eyes. I'm my mother's daughter, aren't I? Don't say that. Why not? It's true. I expected you to sacrifice everything because that's what you do. You're the strong one. You don't need help. She laughed bitterly. Except you're not strong, you're just good at hiding when you're breaking. We sat there in the quiet kitchen, in the house that had become a battlefield, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had my sister back. I can give you the house, I said gently, but I can help you. The trust Dad left, it's enough for a down payment on a small place. I was thinking, what if I loaned you part of it? Enough to get you and the boys into an apartment, give you breathing room while you find work? Vanessa stared at me. You'd do that? You're my sister. And yeah, things have been awful between us. But that doesn't mean I want you to suffer. The boys need stability. You need stability. And we all need to not be crammed into this house hating each other. I couldn't take your money, it's a loan. Not a gift. You pay me back when you can. And in the meantime, you get space to build your life back. Vanessa started crying again, but this time they were different tears. Thank you. God, Elena. Thank you. You're welcome. What about Mom? I thought about that. About the woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me to be strong and independent, and then punished me for becoming exactly that. Mom can stay here as long as she wants. It's her home too. But I'm not leaving. And I'm not pretending anymore that I don't deserve to be here. 3 weeks later, I helped Vanessa move into a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood with good schools. The boys were thrilled to have their own room, to have space to run without being told to be quiet. Vanessa hugged me hard before I left. I'm going to pay you back. Every penny. I know. And Elena, thank you for not giving up on us. Even when we gave up on you. Watching her drive away with the boys waving from the back window, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hopeful. The house was quieter with just Mom and me. She still barely spoke to me, still moved through the rooms like I was a ghost she refused to acknowledge. But I was done shrinking myself to make her comfortable. I used some of the trust money to renovate Dad's study. I turned it into a real office, with a proper desk and good lighting and everything I needed to work from home. I'd started freelancing graphic design, something I'd always loved but never had time for. When I was working full-time and managing Dad's care, I put up photos of Dad and me, the two of us at my college graduation, on a fishing trip we took before he got sick. His last birthday, when he could still smile even though he was so tired. In every picture, he was looking at me like I was something precious, like I mattered. One evening, 6 months after everything had fallen apart and slowly started rebuilding, Mom knocked on my office door. "Can I come in?" I almost said no, but I nodded. She stood in the doorway, looking around at what I'd done with the space. Her eyes landed on the photos. "He loved you so much," she said quietly. "I know. More than me, I think." Sometimes, I didn't know what to say to that. Maybe it was true. Or maybe love wasn't something you measured and compared. Maybe it was just something you felt in the quiet moments, in the way someone looked at you or held your hand or made sure you'd have a home even after they were gone. "He loved you too," I finally said. Mom nodded. She was quiet for a long time, and I watched her face work through emotions she'd probably been holding back for months. "I was wrong," she said, "about everything. About the house, about the money, about you. I was so focused on protecting Vanessa, on making sure she was okay, that I couldn't see what I was doing to you." "Why?" I asked. "Why did you treat me like I didn't matter?" "Because you were always so strong, so capable. You never needed me the way Vanessa did. And I know that's not fair. I know I should have seen that you needed me too. But it was easier to focus on her, because with you, I didn't know how. I spent 3 years taking care of Dad," I said. "And you never once asked me how I was doing. You never asked if I needed help, or if I was scared, or if I was falling apart. You just assumed I could handle it." "I know. And then when he died, you tried to take the one thing he left me, the one thing that proved I mattered to someone." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Elena. I'm sorry for all of it. For making you feel invisible. For trying to erase you. For not being the mother you deserved." I wanted to say it was okay, that I forgave her, that we could move on, but the words caught in my throat. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said honestly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can. I can try to understand." Mom nodded. "That's more than I deserve. Probably." We stood there in Dad's study, my study, and something shifted between us. Not fixed, not healed, but shifted, like tectonic plates settling into a new position. "Can I ask you something?" Mom said. "Okay. Do you think your father would be proud of you? Of how you handled all this?" I thought about Dad, about his careful planning and his detailed notes and his absolute belief that I deserved good things. "Yeah," I said. "I think he would be." Mom smiled, sad and broken and real. "I think so too." After she left, I sat at my desk and opened the letter Dad had written with his will. I'd read it 100 times, but I read it again. Elena has sacrificed more than anyone should have to. She deserves a home of her own, and I want her to have this one. She deserves security, and love, and the knowledge that she mattered not because of what she did for others, but because of who she is. My darling girl, you were never the strong one. You were the brave one. And I hope, when I'm gone, you'll be brave enough to choose yourself." I pressed my fingers to the paper, to the words he'd written in his neat, careful hand. "I did, Dad," I whispered. "I chose myself." And somewhere, in whatever place he'd gone to, I hoped he could hear me. I hoped he knew. The house is quiet now in the evenings, in that good way where quiet means peace instead of tension. Mom and I have dinner together sometimes, and the conversation is still stilted, but it's something. Vanessa texts me pictures of the boys at their new school, at the park, playing in their room. She got a job at an accounting firm, entry level but with benefits and room to grow. She sends me $50 a month toward the loan, and I don't tell her it's not necessary. She needs to pay it back. For herself, I've started dating someone, a guy I met at a coffee shop who didn't know anything about my family or my history, who just liked the way I laughed. It's early, and I'm scared, but I'm trying. I'm trying to believe I deserve good things. I'm trying to be brave enough to choose myself, over and over again, and some mornings, when the light comes through the windows just right. I walk through the house and I can feel Dad here. In the creaky floorboard by the stairs. In the way the door to his study, my study, sticks a little when it rains. In the soft, worn wood of the bench in the backyard. This is my home. Not because I fought for it, though I did. Not because Dad left it to me, though he did. But because I chose to stay. Because I chose to matter. Because I finally learned that being strong doesn't mean never needing anything. It means being brave enough to ask for what you deserve, and to refuse to disappear when someone decides you're inconvenient. I am Elena Torres. I am my father's daughter, and this is my house.